Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ingrid and this is Ingrid Reads a Lot. For today's video, I am going to go over with you guys all the books I read in August. Is it August? I don't even know what month we're in. Spoiler alert, I had a lovely reading month this month. I shouldn't say all of them were amazing, but I did read a lot of books that I enjoyed, and I did have a DNF or two. I'm not 100% sure on the second one, but I definitely for sure DNF'd a book. The other one might be like a soft DNF, but I will talk to you guys about it. I've already mentioned here before, but I have 9 books to talk about, so let's get into it. This month's reading tracker is so funny because I literally have 4 stars and then a DNF. All right, let's start with the book that I officially DNF'd, and that is Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. I got this from my local library, and I already returned it because I read this book for a reading vlog that has actually come out before this video, so I'll link the vlog above if you want to hear more thoughts than what I'm going to tell you in this video. But I attempted to read really popular romances. I really tried to read this book. Our main character Elsie is a theoretical physicist. The male main character Jack is an experimental physicist, and they sort of have this rivalry growing on. And in this book we get Elsie's point of view trying to navigate life as a professor, and she is kind of in a bad place in life right now at the beginning of this book, but that's where the book starts. I DNF'd this. I read half of this book, okay? I will say that in my opinion, I gave this book a very fair chance, and I could not stand the main character Elsie or the writing style of this book. I don't know what it was of the combination of those two things that didn't work for me, but I was reading this thinking that this book was trying so hard to be witty, but it wasn't. That's why I really disliked it, and I could not stomach it. And if you've watched my recent videos, I recently went through a really big slump, and I could not force myself to finish this because I knew it was gonna be something I didn't enjoy at the end of the day. So DNF. All right, the other book that I DNF'd, and I use that in quotes because I don't know if I'm gonna finish this or not, but it's Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. I was really excited to read this. I obviously own a copy, but I just found myself bored. At the beginning of this book, we have Emily, and she's in like a faraway land trying to catalog all of the fairy creatures, and she's writing an encyclopedia about it. And we're following her as she's getting to know the Fae in this world, and we meet her rival slash frenemy, who's another professor at her college. And I was just bored, and I think I got 100 pages into this book, and I didn't want to keep reaching for it, so I moved on to better things. I shouldn't say that. I moved on to things that were more interesting to me. But yeah, this is a soft DNF because I think it might have been, I don't know if it's the writing style or the subject itself, but I do enjoy cozy fantasy type things, and that's what this claims to be. But I think the fact that it's also about the encyclopedia was kind of boring to me. I don't know. Anyway, I'm putting this down. I don't know if I'll ever pick it back up. All right, and so we're gonna move on to 4 stars because that's basically all we have from now on, which is crazy. But I'm glad because I don't want to read things that I don't enjoy. I think 4 stars for me is the sweet spot. I know that, 3 stars for some people is still good, but for me, 3 stars is boring. So I don't want a book to be 3 stars. I would almost rather the book be lower rated, because if I rate something 3 stars, it means I have immediately forgotten about it, and that's never good. But okay, let's go. Let's talk about the book. Next up, I read a Kindle Unlimited book. It's called Burn for Me by Ilona Andrews, and this is a paranormal urban fantasy type thing that I saw someone on Instagram Reels recommend. I apologize, I don't know who it was. Like those things, like you lose track of the creator so fast, but it sounded interesting. So our main character Nevada runs a detective agency in Texas. In this world, basically people have powers, or they've discovered that people can develop powers, and the more magic your family has, the more powerful the family is, and that's where we are in the world. Nevada and this other character Connor Rogan. I think his name is Connor Rogan. Yeah, but they call him Mad Rogan. He is a mage, and he was actually in the military before the beginning of this book, and he's a very, very powerful mage, but they kind of get together to try to figure out a mystery. Nevada is tasked with finding this other mage that's going on a rampage, and her and Connor sort of get together to do that. And something else I didn't tell you is that Nevada has this thing where she can tell when someone is lying. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and more so than the paranormal slash romantic plot of these books, I enjoyed the family elements of this. Nevada has this big family where she has a bunch of siblings, her mom, her grandmother, and those parts of the book were so enjoyable. Like, I really enjoyed getting to know her family and her sisters. Her brother works with her. I think he's like her tech guy type thing. Her sisters are a little bit younger, and then Nevada has this thing where she feels responsible for the family because their father is no longer in the picture. But yeah, I really loved this, so much so that I read the second book, and it's called White Hot. I also gave that a 4 stars. I will definitely keep going in the series, but both of these books were super enjoyable. They sort of follow the same pattern, right? Like, something happens in the beginning of the book, and then they have to get together and solve a mystery. But there's also a bigger world plot going on, which these books gave me so much nostalgia for, like, the 2010s, which is when I was reading a lot of these paranormal romance type books. So yeah, it was really enjoyable. This is my first Ilona Andrews, and I know they're a writing duo, but I hadn't read anything else by them. So yeah, I will definitely finish off this series and let you guys know what I think. By the way, the names of these books are not great. Even the title of the books like give me like nostalgia factor just because they're so cheesy, you know? All right, and then another fantasy book that I read that I thoroughly enjoyed was Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole. This also got a 4 stars for me. Basically, this is a fantasy book, not paranormal, but we have our main character DM, and she lives in a world where mortals have been colonized by godlike creatures, and their offspring are called the Descended, and they are the ones that rule over this mortal world. They have more power, and they're, you know, indestructible or whatever, but they live very much separated from the mortal people in this world. DM is a healer, and her mother is also a healer. At the beginning of this book, her mother has gone missing, and DM sort of gets tangled up in this mystery of where has her mother gone, also in the mess with the Descended, and she meets the male main character, and his name is Luther, I believe. They're the ones that I think is the romantic plot in this book, because she is with someone at the beginning of this book, but I couldn't stand him, so I'm guessing that is on purpose. I loved the world. I also enjoyed that the romance part of this book is not the focus of the book. We're more trying to figure out what's going on in this world. DM has a lot of things going on within her, and I felt so bad for her. And that's where I also took off a star, because it's so obvious. So I'm gonna get a little bit more into spoilers, so if you want to read this, then don't keep watching. But basically, DM suffers from these hallucinations, as she calls them, and her mother has been medicating her for them her whole life. And basically the hallucination is that she has magic, but that couldn't be because mortals don't have magic, only Descended do. It's so obvious that she has magic, and I'm like, well, you live in a world where magic exists. Why is the first thing, and I get it. Her mom has told her whole life that she's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, so she believes it. But at the same time, it's like, if that was the case in our world, I think I would be more inclined to believe her that maybe she, you know. But in the world where magic exists, why wouldn't you think that, like, maybe I do have magic, you know? Anyway, that was why, like, I took off some stars, because some parts of this book were very obvious, and you're just sitting there being like, girl, like, duh. But I still liked it. I'm still gonna keep going in the series. This whole series, I think 3 books are out. They got picked up to be traditionally published recently, and I think they're gonna come out in October, but they are available in Kindle Unlimited because that's where they are originally published first. The whole series, I think, is 4 books, but the 4th book is not out yet. So that scares me a little bit, because I guess there's been some delays. It was supposed to be coming out way before, and it got delayed. I don't know if it got delayed because it was traditionally published and maybe the author's just waiting to publish it, or if something else happened. I don't know. Either way, I am invested, so I will keep going. And I really enjoyed this fantasy. Okay, and then the next 4-star book, I will not I will not sit here and talk too much about it because it's Queen of Shadows by Sarah J Maas. Why did I have to think about that? I don't know, because I've read these millions of times already, but I'm doing this as a part of a read along with Bethany and some other girls that I will link the video below. And basically we're just doing a whole Sarah J Maas read along, and if you want to join, I will put the link to Bethany's video down below. But basically we're going to be talking about this book on September 6th for a live show. So yeah, I love this. I think this is definitely not my favorite in the series. I think this book does a lot of setting up for things that are happening further in the series, but I still quite enjoy it. I'm interrupting this video to add another book that I finished before the end of the month. I wanted to talk to you guys about Lucy Undying by Kiersten White. I got this book from NetGalley to read early. I believe this novel is going to be released September 10th. But first, before I talk about this book, let's look at this cover because masterpiece. Let's be honest, it looks fabulous. This book is a Dracula reimagining from the point of view of Lucy Westenra. I don't know how to say her name, but I enjoyed this a lot. This book is very character driven, so I think if you don't like a character based novel, you're not going to enjoy this, because I did see a lot of reviews of people saying that this is slow, and it is, but I enjoyed myself because you get the point of view of Lucy before, during, and after she becomes a vampire. And we also get another point of view of the present from this person named Iris that is going to interact with Lucy as their paths cross. I absolutely adored this. I think I loved all four different timelines, and I just loved getting to know Lucy, and I loved seeing her through this journey of self-discovery, because she was turned very young. Especially at the time she was turned, women were just meant to be these beautiful, brainless, they were meant to be looked at and not actually heard from. I think because Lucy was turned so young, she kind of froze in that point of her life. And so we see her kind of going through all of these different things, journey of self-discovery, and more importantly self-love. And we also get a point of view from Iris that's dealing with kind of similar situations. It's almost like a mirror of Lucy but in the future, and this is a sapphic romance between the two of them, and they come together. And I did really love this book, and I wasn't expecting to, because I have a hard time with Kiersten White's horror novels, and this is slight horror. There are some gory parts, but I think it's mostly like a retelling. But I enjoyed this because it was different. I don't know if it's because it is like a retelling of Dracula, but we don't really Dracula isn't even a blip on in this book, which I enjoyed because I don't care about him. He's just horrible. But I will say, and this might be a little spoilery, so if you want to read this, then obviously don't listen to what I'm gonna say next. But I did think that, again, I think I only gave this a 4 stars because I feel like the author tries to do a lot in her books, and sometimes I feel like less is more. I liked all of Lucy's timelines, but I think the whole second storyline with Iris and her family, and this vampire MLM, and these people are after Iris, I liked it, but I almost feel like it wasn't necessary. I think just Lucy's story was enough. But again, I still enjoy this. There's some twists at the end that I was not expecting, but I did think that the vampire MLM was a little bit much, even though I enjoyed that, because it's just such a blatant in your face criticism of MLMs. They're gonna suck your soul out. But yeah. Anyway, if any of what I said kind of intrigues you to read this, I encourage you to, because I feel like this book is gonna be polarizing when it comes out. I think people will either love it or hate it, honestly. But yeah, I want to see what other people think. But back to my other self at some point, because that's all I had to talk to you guys about. All right, let's talk about the 4.5 star book that I read this month, which is Look Closer by David Ellis. And this is a thriller, and I read this because Joshana recommended it, and she told me to read it because she's like, I don't read a lot of thriller, but I think you're gonna enjoy it. And let me tell you, this book is a freaking ride because we have our two main characters, Simon and Vicky, and they're a married couple in Chicago. He's a professor. He seems a little bit like shy, and Vicky she works for like a homeless shelter, I think, for women that have been affected by domestic violence. But basically, right from the get-go in the synopsis of this book, if you read it, it says that they're both liars. And the title of the book says it. Look closer. But if you watched my TBR video for this month, you would have known that I didn't read any synopsis. I basically went into this blind. And I think that's what everyone should do, because the whole time I'm reading this book, I'm thinking, what is going on? Like, who, what, when? Like, I don't want to say anything about this because I really do think that you should go knowing nothing. All I'm going to say is that it's a domestic thriller, and that you should go into it without knowing anything and be prepared to be surprised, because the twists in this, I couldn't figure it out. So definitely 4.5 stars. I really, really enjoyed this. You're at the edge of your seat the whole time you're reading this. So if that's what you like in a thriller, go read it. All right, and then spoiler alert, the next 3 books I read in this month were 5 stars, which doesn't happen often, because as I said it last month, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I haven't really been giving books 5 stars this year. And then all these books that I read were 5 stars, which makes me extremely happy. I won't talk too much about these 2 books because I have a whole vlog about the books, and that is Funny Story by Emily Henry and Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I did a vlog talking about reading books that are very popular that I haven't read before from these authors. I didn't realize, okay, this is gonna sound stupid, but I didn't realize I could love a contemporary romance as much as I love these books, because they're so hard-hitting. Like, usually when I think romance, I think fun, steamy times, which is my fault. Like, I shouldn't look at all romance like that, but for the most part, the ones that I've read are like that. So it's a me problem, because I should pick up romances like these more often, because it's clearly what I enjoy. So I was doing something wrong, right? I loved both of these equally. They both got 5 stars for me. If I had to pick one over the other, I would say I enjoyed the storyline of Yours Truly more. I think it's even more hard-hitting than Funny Story, but I think they're both extremely well done in their own rights. And if you want to hear more of my thoughts, go check out that vlog video, because I go into a lot of depth in that video. All right, and then the last book I gotta talk about, which is another 5 stars, is The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. And this is a cozy fantasy / romantasy, apparently. I think calling this a romantasy is going a little bit over the line, in my opinion, because this is very much a cozy fantasy. There is a small romantic element, but it's definitely not the focus of the story. And this, I'm gonna put this book down because I'm not gonna hold it the whole time, but basically our main character's name is Keela, and she's a librarian, and her assistant's name is Kaz, and he is a sentient spider plant. At the very beginning of this book, Kaz and Keela are fleeing the library because the world, or the city that they live in, Elysium, I think is the name of the city, has been ransacked by rebels, and I think it sounds like they want to get rid of the current system that is in place because it oppresses people, and they want to get rid of the monarchy, and that's where we're left in the beginning of the book. They flee to Keela's home island, and that's where all the magic happens. As Keela is trying to come to get used to living in this small island by herself and interacting with people, Keela is very much keeps to herself. She's a librarian. She doesn't really interact with a lot of people, and she is a very nervous person. She has just trouble talking to people. And I did see a lot, because obviously when I love a book, I want to see if other people love it too. So I went to Goodreads to read reviews, and some of the comments were saying that Keela was an unlikable character, and I thought that that was quite funny, because I don't think she's unlikable. I think she's a little bit antisocial. That doesn't mean that you're an unlikable person. I digress, but I don't think she's unlikable is what I was trying to say. I loved the interactions between Keela and Kaz, and I loved that Keela sort of set boundaries for herself between her and the romantic interest, because he's trying to his name's Lauren. He's trying to help her and he comes over to her house and he's like, oh, do you want food? Do you want this and that? And she's like, you can't just show up at my house, which is a very sensible thing to do, because what if he was a serial killer? You never know, you know? And boundaries, you know, everyone has them. People should set them. And anyway, I just loved everything about this. And then there's also Meep, who is another plant that happens to be created or alived during this book. But and then I'm gonna get a little bit into spoilers, so if you want to read this, then I'll keep watching the video. There is a part where we get this woman that she claims to be from the big city, and she wants to make sure that there's no illegal activity going on. And Keela has decided to create a jam shop, which is it's a magic shop, because she is doing spells for people to help people in this island. Because I didn't mention this in the beginning, but basically this world has been created with magic, but the monarchs have taken away the source of magic for the common folk. So like, they're not allowed to do their own spells. That's all illegal. So the only people with power are the people that are monarchs, even though spells are something that anyone can do. So Keela does this to help the other people, and this woman comes around, and her and Lauren, which is Keela's love interest, he's a very nice person, so he basically, you know, offers to help her. And then I thought that this novel was gonna go in the sense that like, oh, here we go, someone's gonna get between them, but that doesn't happen at all. Like, there is a little inkling that could happen, but then we shift the story like a completely different way, and I quite enjoyed that because it made this like a breath of fresh air, where we don't have this like female rivalry because of a love interest. And I just loved it. And then I will say, this is also spoilers, but my favorite, I was laughing out loud in this book, was the part where Kaz and Meep are holding the woman hostage because they don't want Keela to get in trouble. And Kaz basically says, we could unalive her. And I just thought, like, the way he says it, it's just so unexpected. And Keela's like, no, Kaz, we can't do that. And he's just like, I can just picture like a plant. I don't know why, but I found that scene super funny. Anyways, if you enjoy cozy fantasy, I encourage you to go read this because it is lovely. And I knew this was going to be good. I love Sarah Beth Durst as an author. I knew she was going to do this genre a service. So if you enjoy that, I encourage you to read this because it was really, really good and really, really cute. I'm gonna stop gushing about this book and I'm gonna get out of here because I've already been talking for so long. Let me know what you guys read this month that you really enjoyed, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. Goodbye.